Okay, let's get started. So these are the materials I used, and we are going to start off with the bust. And here I made a slip knot. I'm going to be making a B cup, so I will be chaining 20. Here's the chain 20 completed. And next we are going to crochet into the second chain from the hook and insert a Suzette stitch, which is one single crochet and one double crochet in the same stitch. Next, we are going to skip a stitch and place a second Suzette stitch. So one single crochet and one double crochet in the same stitch. And again, skipping a stitch and place a third Suzette stitch. And this is what the Suzette stitches will look like little small clusters. So here is the 3 Suzette stitches we have done so far. And stretching your yarn out also helps to see the clusters a little bit better. And again, skipping a stitch and placing a 4th Suzette stitch. So you'll repeat the same steps until you have 10 Suzette stitches, and make sure you're not counting the skipped stitches in between, only count the Suzette stitches. Here are the 10 Suzette stitches completed. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This is what the front and back look like. So now we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. And this is the official start of row 1. So we'll be inserting a Suzette stitch in our first stitch right here. So one single crochet and one double crochet in the same stitch. And then we'll be skipping a stitch and place the second Suzette stitch. And you know the drill, skip a stitch and then place your third Suzette stitch. Here are the 10 Suzette stitches completed. Now, right next to the 10th Suzette stitch, we are going to place 3 double crochets in the same stitch. So there's 1, 2, and then 3. So here I'm just stretching the yarn out to locate the space right next to the 3 double crochet we just completed. But this space is where we insert the first Suzette stitch on the left side of row 1. Now at this point, do not crochet into the spaces, but instead crochet into the stitches connecting the spaces, and this will help prevent gapping in the cups. So place your second Suzette stitch, and here I'm showing where you'll be placing your upcoming Suzette stitches. So place your third Suzette stitch, and again, do not crochet into the spaces. And what I mean by space is don't crochet into the little circles. And in these stitches, I personally like to crochet into the top of the stitch rather than the middle of it, if that makes sense. But that's just how I like to do it. And here we have row 1 officially completed. So here's the front and back. You can decide whichever part you'd like to be the front or back. But now we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. And here is the start of row 2. So we're going to insert our first Suzette stitch on this side, and we will be completing 11 Suzette stitches in row 2. So after you've completed the 11th Suzette stitch, you're going to place 3 double crochets right next to it, just like we did in row 1. And right next to your 3 double crochets, we are going to place our first Suzette stitch on this side. And now we're going to resume skipping stitches. So skip a stitch and then place your second Suzette stitch. And continue your Suzette stitches with skips until you have 11 Suzette stitches completed for row 2. So I already chained 1 and turned my work, and now you will continue to repeat row 2 and increase in each row. I did about 7 rows, but depending on your hook and yarn, you may need to do more or less. And here's my cup completed. It has more of an oblong almond shape. But now we are going to create the cup's border. So you are going to chain 1, turn your work, and you will single crochet into each stitch around the cup. Okay, here is the border completed. And now we are going to single crochet along the bottom of the cup, and this doesn't have to be done in any particular way. Just remember to have the same amount of single crochets when you are completing your second cup. And just a reminder, don't forget to crochet over the slip knot strand so you don't have to weave in as many ends when you're finished. So I completed 21 single crochets, and now we are going to start the back strap. So chain 1, turn your work, and double crochet into each stitch. And continue creating double crochet rows until you reach your desired length. And keep in mind to leave some space in between your back straps because we will be tying them together later. Now I only made about 6 rows because I wanted the top to be more fitted. But now you're just going to chain 1 and cut your yarn and then pull the strand through the loop. And again, make sure the second cup has the same number of backstrap rows. After you've created the second cup, we are going to connect them by counting the total number of stitches in the cup's border and divide that number by 2 and place a stitch marker in that stitch. So for example, I had 64 single crochets in my cup's border, and I divided that by 2, which is 32, and I placed a stitch marker in the 32nd stitch on each side of the cup. So this is the front of my cups, and I am going to flip them and switch sides, and it's up to you which side you want to be the front, but I can tell the inside of my cups because it has a thick border along the side of it. So here I'm just showing that the thick border is the inside of my cups. Now make a slip knot, and we are going to connect the cups from the bottom up. Insert your hook. And you're going to slip stitch through each stitch. And you can now remove your stitch markers. And again, this is just how I like to connect the cups, but you can connect them however you'd like. Just keep in mind that we will be inserting a flower later on if you have a flower. And again, we're going to repeat. Insert your hook. And then pull through along each stitch. And just keep repeating until you reach your desired coverage, depending on how low cut you would like your top to be. Now I ended up doing 6 stitches. So now we are going to chain 1. And before you cut your yarn, make sure to have a really long strand. We're going to use this strand to sew over the flower later. But if you don't have a flower that you want to include on your top, you do not need a long strand. And your strand doesn't even have to be as long as mine if you do want to include a flower. I just make it this long in case I need it to be. And this is what the cups look like once they're connected. You can start to see the sweetheart outline take shape at the top. And if you have a long strand for the flower you want to include, I like to bunch up the long strand and then bobby pin it to the top so that the strand doesn't get in the way as we are crocheting the rest of the top. Now we're going to move on to the V section. So we're going to make a slip knot and chain 5. And then you're going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So 1 single crochet. In the next stitch, you're going to place 1 double crochet. And then 1 single crochet. And in the last stitch, 1 double crochet. For row 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And we're going to start increasing in the first stitch right here. So place 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet, and 1 single crochet all in the same stitch. Then place 1 double crochet in the next stitch. And alternate again, 1 single crochet, and then always end your row with 1 double crochet. Alright, then we're going to chain 1, turn your work, and you're going to repeat row 2 by increasing in the first stitch, and then continue alternating between double crochets and single crochets. Just keep in mind to always end your row with a double crochet and always begin your row increasing. And you will continue these steps until you reach your desired coverage. Okay, so I did about 10 rows, and here I'm just finishing up the last double crochet. And after this, you can just leave your top like this if you'd like, but I wanted to add a single crochet border along the bottom of the V section just for more side coverage. And you can add however many rows of single crochets that you'd like, but I ended up just doing 1 row of single crochets along the bottom of this V section. And this is what mine looks like completed. Here's the front and back. And now you're going to chain 1. And before you cut your yarn, make sure to have another really long strand because we are going to use this strand to connect this section to the cups. And again, the strand doesn't have to be as long as mine. You can clearly see me struggling to pull it through the loop, but I do this just to be safe so I don't have to run out of yarn later on. So now I'm going to place a stitch marker at the center of the cups. And next we're going to count the total number of stitches along the top of this V section, divide by 2 and place a stitch marker. So my total was 30. I divided by 2 and placed a stitch marker in stitch 15. And I'm going to write down my total number, which was 30, because we are going to use that number later. So now we're going to connect our pieces and we're going to line up the middle of the V section with the center of the cups. Now make a slip knot and then insert your hook. Pull the yarn through and then chain 6. And now you're going to remove the stitch marker. Insert your hook. And then slip stitch the cups to the top of the chain 6. And then chain 1 and cut your yarn. Next, we're going to connect the rest of the top, and to do that, we're going to take the number we wrote down earlier, subtract 1, and divide by 2. So for example, mine was 30 minus 1 is 29, and 29 divided by 2 is 14.5. And I'm just going to round up to 15. And from there, I'm going to start from the center and count outwards until I reach stitch 15 on both sides, and then place my stitch markers there. All right, so now we're going to sew the top together. Flip your top over. All right, get your darning needle and grab the long yarn strand attached to the V section. And we're going to start sewing from the side corners into the cups. So not the top, but the side corners. And I want to make sure that this stays secure. So after we remove the stitch marker, my version of tying a knot is sewing through the same stitch in the same direction repeatedly. So I'm doing it again for a second time. Same stitch, same direction. And then I'm going to do it a third time just for good measure. And now the top should be secured on tightly. Now we're going into the next stitch, except this time we're going downward. And then in the next stitch, go upward. And then downward. And you're basically sewing in a zigzag line. I honestly forgot the technical name of this type of sewing, but continue going up and down until you reach the chain 6 in the middle. Okay, and now at the chain 6, we're going to sew the bottom 2 chains into the top 2 chains and just work your way through slowly. And continue sewing in a zigzag line until you reach your second stitch marker. Okay, so we've reached the end, and make sure to sew into the side corners. And to tie a knot, we're going to sew in an upward direction in the same stitch 3 times. Or it can be downward, whichever one your top ends on. Just make sure it's being sewn in the same direction multiple times. And then once you're done, you can cut the strand shorter and weave in your ends. Now this is what the top should look like. And for the halter straps, you are going to try on the top and place a stitch marker on each side wherever you'd like your straps to be. Now make a slip knot. Insert your hook. Pull the yarn through. Chain 1. Insert a single crochet in the same stitch, just so it's secured on tighter. And then you're going to chain 100 or until your desired length. And after you've chained 100, you're going to slip stitch back down the chain. Alright, so now we're going to do the same thing for the back straps. So we're going to chain 120 or however many you'd like. And then we're going to slip stitch back down the chain. And this is what it should look like. Chain 1, cut your yarn. Just weave in your ends, and this is how I tied it. Now, if you want to add charms, I got these off of Amazon and they're technically for your hair, but that's why I like them because they come with the rings attached already. But it's pretty self-explanatory. I just use pliers to open up the ring and then I place them throughout the halter strap. Alright, and for those of you that want to add a flower, you're going to first insert the flower wherever you'd like it to rest on the top. Then you're going to turn your top over. And I didn't need my stem to be this long, so I cut it. And I'm going to save the stem in case I want to glue it onto another flower that doesn't have a stem. I'm just folding the stem over. Now get your darning needle and insert the long strand from the cups into your needle. And you're going to sew over the flower stem however you'd like. I don't have a particular method because it's inside the top, so I don't mind if it looks messy as long as it's secured. But then I will tie a knot and then cut the yarn if I need to, and then weave in my ends. And this is the top completed. Thank you so much for those of you that watched my tutorial, and please tag me if you made the top. I would love to see it on you. But other than that, I hope to see you soon. Bye.